All right, let's go ahead and call the meeting to order since we have a few housekeeping things first. Welcome, everybody. The first thing is public comment. I don't see any member of well, I see a couple members of the public, Bob. But, well, George is our attorney.
Julia.
Oh, Julie. Oh, she's online?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Would either of you like to make any public comments? Okay. Then let's go into board member comments. Are there any board member comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to the first action item, and that's the review of the purchase and sale agreement for Lot 1B. And the approval of the resolution authorizing the Mid-Valley Apartments to enter into a purchase and sale. George and Jason, would you like to?
Sure.
Who'd like to?
Yeah, so I sent y'all a memo yesterday. Sorry it wasn't until Sunday, but we were hoping to get some comments back from the proposed buyer. Those did not happen. In any case, we do have a couple items we need to finalize or clean up with the PSA. I noted in the memorandum. We can go through those, but I mean, big picture wise, this would be for Lot 1B. That is the ground where phase 2 of the Cottonwoods has been contemplated to be built on. The purchase price would be for $9 million. 5 of that would be earnest money, which is an extremely high amount for earnest money. And it would be released to the housing authority. As we've discussed in other discussions, the intention would be that $5 million then be utilized by the condominium component of the project for ongoing project costs. Obviously, earnest money, if the buyer terminates the contract, that would need to be returned to them. So we have added, they've agreed to give the housing authority 1 year from termination to return that $5 million. So the housing authority would have time from a termination to figure out how to pay that money back. But obviously that is an issue with this concept. So relatively small portions of the earnest money do go non-refundable on certain milestones, up to $150,000. That, in our mind, is somewhat of compensation for the fact that the apartment company is the infrastructure loan in the amount of $4 million is accruing interest payable monthly. So that would, in theory, help with that. But between the earnest money, which will be spent, and the infrastructure loan, there's no real profit or payoff to YVHA at the end of this deal. The closing could be quite a while from now. By my math, it was up to 480 days from execution. Also, the buyer would require the housing authority to remove the use covenant. That is the deed restriction, which is currently encumbering the apartment lot. So there would be no income, affordability, anything that would be required by any legal document with respect to the sale. So the kind of unagreed to matters, they want the housing authority to hold back $300,000 of the earnest, or not the earnest money, of the proceeds at the sale to cover the warranties which we are providing for in the agreement. That is not warranties as to the condition of the physical property, but rather warranties like we have the authority to do this, that sort of thing. I think that's absurd to hold back, particularly for that amount of money, particularly with there's not going to be a pot of money at the end of the day. The infrastructure loan is going to need to be paid off. The earnest money is going to be gone. To cover closing costs and title policy, the housing authority will likely need to put some amount of money into the closing rather than get a check from the title company at the end of the day. So the 300,000 or any number does not really make sense to me. We have not come to an agreement with the buyer on that issue. We are in discussion about it. Two, the buyer has requested that because there's been infrastructure work done on the site in relation to required infrastructure for phase one, they want seller to indemnify them for the infrastructure. I think we could likely agree to some period of time on that, but not an indefinite forever warranting the infrastructure. I don't think one, we can, or two, that's reasonable. Three, and we've been going back and forth with them about this. They have a fairly standard confidentiality provision in the contract. Obviously, we're talking about this here in open meeting right now. It's not going to work for us. So we've been going back and forth. So that's where we're at. I think you have the ability to, you could approve it as presented with some of these smaller issues subject to the negotiating team to finalize with the potential buyer, or you could wait until, I guess, next Thursday, and we would have this is literally the document that would be signed. Questions, comments?
I'll just note just a couple things, kind of getting a little bigger picture than where George is at with the actual document. Why would we do something like this? So the sale of the phase two lot accomplishes for us kind of the two objectives. One, it infuses the capital necessary to complete phase one. This was kind of always contemplated as being a $5 million influx into the project. The second is that it facilitates the transfer of the property to a group that we have a significant track record with of developing affordable housing. So that our sort of intent of developing phase two as an affordable housing asset will continue. And so those are kind of the big picture why reasons, is that sort of cash need now and an organization or group that that we believe is capable and mission aligned from the standpoint of delivering the housing that our community needs.
Any other questions of George or Jason?
I have a question, George, what
Yes, sir.
if everything was gonna be finalized a week from now? Why are we meeting now about this when we still have outstanding issues that need to be negotiated?
Well, we had to make an agenda on Friday, and we didn't know where we'd be after the weekend. So.
Okay. The second question is, you said the closing could take how long potentially?
My math was up to 480 days.
400?
There's a reason for that, though,
No, that's what I'm
Explain
asking.
it, yes.
No, I'm just asking, can you
Yeah, I know,
explain
and it's,
why it's so long?
I mean, fundamentally, do you want the timelines, or are you asking why are they?
Is that reason?
That is it's somewhat longer than something like this. 9 months probably would be more appropriate for a fairly big sale of a development property like this. A year and a half is definitely long, for sure. They could certainly close before then. And the 480 days is if they utilize like every extension that they are allowed for in the contract, rather than kind of the default dates would be closer to 240 days, but they do have the ability to extend that.
And then my only other question regarding that, is there any additional risk in it being extended for such a long period of time? Or no?
I mean, from a legal perspective, no. From a business perspective, again, that loan is accruing interest payable every month. Elliot, what's that number? You know,
Yeah, it's $25,000 a month.
25 grand a month. So that's over the course of,
$375,000 a year and a half.
yeah, and only 150,000 in the earnest money would go hard during that time. So there's the carrying cost. There's just the cost of it from a business perspective being off the market. If you were selling your home and the guy wanted a year and a half, well, you're losing opportunities to have other buyers that would be interested in buying it sooner. I don't know if those folks exist or what sort of timeline a different buyer would want, but those are the business risks.
And my final question around it is there any more negotiation around shortening that contract?
We could probably shorten it a bit, but I don't think that they have an appetite to significantly shorten.
Mark, you
My
had some
outlook on
insights.
this a little bit. I think they built that in to make sure that, they want some time for themselves, but they built a lot of this in to make sure that we could get this project closed out and get it in a state that is saleable. And that we've closed the other project out, and so their first tranche of time was in essence to allow the phase one to close. And knowing that Hausman is gonna be out there working until July, probably, maybe a little bit longer. So there's the first tranche of time is to allow that to get over with. And then they built in some automatic extensions in the event that Hausman's not done. I would be shocked if Hausman was done, frankly. But maybe they'll be done and they won't need those extensions. So that I think is predominantly the reason it's there. And they get some time in there for themselves. But I don't personally think they want to go out 480 days. But there was time built in to deal with these circumstances that they don't have control of and we don't have control, in my opinion.
Mark, can you elaborate a little bit on why, I thought Jason, what's the timing of the move-in for building one and building two? I mean, I recognize that we need to have the landscaping and such done in the summer. But what is gonna be happening all the way until July?
Elliot can talk about that in detail, but the big picture, the building's gonna be TCO and they're gonna be ready to close. It's landscaping and some other work that is just not reasonable to do now. And so it got extended and they picked the day of July 15th, Hausman. And so, okay. Depending what the weather does, that they could be out of there soon if it stays as bone dry as it's been. But if it got wet all of a sudden, it'd slow it down. There's that big there's about 1,000 or 1,500 yard pile of dirt that needs to be moved. So there's things happening that are gonna happen in the spring, post-closing of the actual units. But the actual units, the carports, are gonna be TCO'd, and some dates very shortly. And in theory, and be ready to close.
So I would disagree with the closing out of phase one being the primary kind of timeline mechanism here. So they have a 150-day review period for due diligence, which it does talk about this, where if there's not TCO on the phase one property, that would be extended out till whatever time is 30 days after that TCO. But that's just kind of the initial review period. Then they have an additional 90-day financing period after the expiration of the 150 days. Then from that, they have 6 days to close, but they can extend that up to 2 times for 90 days. So they have an ability, even with TCO already done, say in July or well before that, to extend this out considerably.
But what you just laid out is not 480 days. It's
100.
shorter, it's shorter.
150 plus 90 is 240 plus 60 is 300 plus 290 days, it's 480.
Okay, well, I don't.
Cool, check my math.
My,
Got it.
I don't think the desire to go that long.
I agree too, and they also,
They're just trying to make sure there isn't an issue.
I would tend to agree with you. I'm just saying have no legal obligation to close. I do think they want to close when they get their money and due diligence in order. And specifically in one of the last go-arounds, they added language clarifying how they can accelerate closing. And we said, great, we want you to close tomorrow if possible. So I think they want to close. I'm just warning people they don't have an obligation to do so.
Any other questions?
Yeah, my other question was, one of our highest priorities throughout this entire process has been the quality of the condominiums for phase one. That's been our priority. That's why we've been doing all the adjustments, compromise with our developer partner, is to, get people into homes, which is our ultimate goal. So I guess my question is, when this property was designed, it was designed for, good outdoor healthy living, a nice space, so the people that are moving into the condominiums have a great home to live in. Do we have any legal assurity that the type of buildings or the type of product being built, since we're handing over control, is still going to be the type of property and neighborhood that we have guaranteed to the people moving into Cottonwood Phase One?
There's no legal obligation so we expect, but there's no obligation for them to use the existing plans that have been approved by the city with respect to phase two. Those were approved as a unit or a group, say. They've expressed a lot of interest in getting ownership of those plans. So the thought is that they are going to do something with those plans, or perhaps apply to the city for some minor changes under the substantial conformance route, which is easier to get approved. But there is no obligation whatsoever on them legally. They could go in and do a completely different development plan, and it would be whatever meets and is approved by the city in terms of design standards and all that, amenities, landscaping.
Jason, how much of the property they're taking over was the outdoor space? Like, was it any, outdoor livability space? Or
Almost none of it.
Almost.
So there's,
The park is on the condominium lot, I believe. Are they still doing that community garden concept thing?
yeah, so if you remember thinking of the lot, there's a bit of a like horseshoe of parking, and then in the middle is a green space, and that has, a play area for kids and benches and gardens and stuff like that. Anyhow, that's being built with phase one. So that's like The play structure is already in, as an
Elliot,
example.
can we pull up the plans?
Sure.
We can,
And then secondarily, the open space lot, which is the space between kind of the area that you see being actively developed in the core trail.
Mhm.
That's
to
the,
the south.
yeah, to the south, that's the sort of like wetland area. There's an obligation for phase two, the phase two lot to build out that sort of like kind of passive park area in there.
But
So with the entitlements from the city comes an expectation to build that. I would imagine if they were to go through a new entitlements process, that would remain a requirement of the cities.
That's where that 1,500 yard pile of materials
that's-
going.
that's in the code to some, okay. So, and the next question, I guess, so Michael, and do you feel that the buyers will be comfortable? Is this something that, I mean, that's one of my top concerns. I wanna make sure our buyers are still getting the product that we've been selling to them. And you feeling it'll still,
You mean,
I
to
mean,
be clear, you mean the condominium
Condominium
buyers,
buyers,
not
yeah.
this buyer?
yeah.
You're talking about the project we're selling now, or are you talking about
I'm
phase
talking
two?
about the condominiums that we're selling now. So basically their living space, what they're gonna be, the neighborhood they're gonna be in is, at least as far as the outdoor space, is going to be the same as we've been describing. But the development of the actual units could be virtually anything.
Anything that they want to apply to the city to do is allowed by code. They've not directly indicated that they want to, they've, again, have expressed great interest of taking ownership of the approved plans. Particularly, you know, if they wanted to go into a different, approval with the city, even if it was expedited due to the affordability code revision, which I don't know if what they would qualify, but I mean, that could be quite a deal of time to get approved. I think, selling a property with approved plans that you like is always very attractive because you're way ahead of the game in terms of getting your approvals. And you also know that there's not the risk of your vision, what you think works both from a financial perspective and attractive to buyers or renters will or will not be approved by the city. But there is no legal obligation.
And the other thing is that, I mean, this is an affordable housing developer. And Kimball, who runs, Colorado, and I think if they do something in Wyoming, she does that too, has done 1,700 units of affordable housing in 9 years. I mean, these are pros. This is not Lone Tree Trust.
Oh, no, I recognize that. I have a lot of respect for Kimball and Gorman and their success in building, local and state and affordable houses.
Oh, yeah, so thank you, Elliot.
Thanks, Ellie, for bringing that up.
Yeah, so building 1 and 2, you can see there with the park, that is lot 1. Then lot 2 is where building 4 and 3 are shown. And then there is this outlot to the south, to the left of this, where that is the open space with some park component of some kind. That is not being conveyed. That's an outlot pursuant to the plat. So they kind of wrap around to the south and west of the existing development, but you see it's mostly just the other side of the road and some landscape sort of thing.
Jason, was the original open space and playground envisioned to be shared space between all the buildings? And is that, or is this now, since we're selling this, is that going to be strictly the property of the condominium HOA?
I can answer. So the initial concept when this was going to be two phases of essentially the same development with the same people. The idea was to add buildings 3 and 4 to the HOA that has been formed for the condominiums. The buyer is aware that that HOA has been created now. They're going to review that stuff during their due diligence. I fully expect that they will not want to be a part of the HOA. However, the park not dedicated to the public because the city doesn't do that because they don't want to maintain it. I would expect that the buyer would likely want some private agreement with the HOA to have access to that park and to likely share in some common maintenance of the kind of primary roadway. But that would be a post getting under contract discussion and negotiation point with them to get, well, we control the HOA right now.
Yeah.
But to get to an arrangement that works for both parties involved. Because I can certainly see we're gonna sell the units off. The HOA is gonna be controlled by the new owners. I can certainly see them not wanting the apartment people's kids to come over and use the park. I think the apartment of the buyer of this will want that ability. And if that is the case, we would enter into an agreement that makes sense for everyone involved in terms of the upkeep and access to the park. But that's a post-contract item to, as they go through their due diligence.
And really that should be something that the new owners really should have to voice and decide. And then my other question, and Cole, Cole, can you share the password? I had some on the Yampa bank account.
Yeah, those that came, YVHA guess is the password.
Okay, thank you. I just want to check my notes.
The
but-
password is right there.
Yeah, I didn't see it. My other question is, I know you have a second part of this meeting to discuss other, contractual matters. And I'm just wondering if perhaps we should discuss those matters first that don't, since this is all part of the same package.
Are you talking about the global agreement?
Yes.
We're not going to talk about that today.
Oh, we're not talking about that today.
No, that's not ready to go.
Okay, because I,
That will be handled at the March 12th board meeting, presumably.
at the retreat.
Yes, at the beginning of the retreat.
Okay, because I think that us moving forward with this, I mean, granted, it's kind of a chicken and an egg thing, but I think they're very symbiotic together. So I don't know if I'm comfortable voting on moving on this part of the program until we get the global agreement locked.
I can understand that position.
That's just my position. I think these are very contingent upon each other. And I'd like to get that part done first.
So actually, based on some communications I've had with the buyer in the last hour, we might not. So again, this is allowing the apartment company to enter into the contract. It is not entering into the contract. But they expressed concern about the apartment company not being wholly owned by the housing authority, again, in the last hour. The global agreement contemplates Steamboat Partners being removed from the apartment company ownership. They only have 0.01% currently. But yes, the global agreement and that transfer might need to occur prior to actually signing the contract. So again, yes, chicken and egg, maybe this is not ready, or maybe, I don't know.
Just my opinion. I think we need to do the global agreement first.
Or at the same time.
Or at the same time, excuse me. But tell me why, Mark, Cole, you guys are with us, tell me why I'm missing on this?
I will add, getting under contract with the buyer, not today, but sometime in the next couple days, would start the process of, one, the review, but two, getting that earnest money to the title company and then starting the process. There's about a 10-day period to get that money out, and then that money needs to flow to the condo company. I believe the next payout for the construction of the condo company is sometime in late March.
Tomorrow,
No,
then the one after.
the one we're talking about is, yes, but yeah, there's a payment app that'll be paid tomorrow with the line of credit that the partners have provided that will essentially or totally be the extent of that line of credit. So there is concern on our behalf to have money available for that next payment to Hausman, the general contractor, sometime later this month. I'm not saying that can't happen if this happens on the 12th, but that has been some of the concern, is getting this component of the process started so other things can begin their processes.
They would pay the earnest money even though it wasn't final?
What do you mean?
Cause I thought you were saying if we moved forward today, it was still.
Oh, so if you all approve the PSA, subject to those few terms that I pointed out that need to be finalized, my expectation would be that we would have that done with the buyer in the next couple days. And then it would be signed sometime this week rather than a week from Thursday and then probably signing on Friday.
Yeah, I think these two documents. And the global agreement, this is a piece of the global agreement. The global agreement is still being negotiated, still a little problematic. This is a separate document that says when to sell the land. This has nothing to do with the global agreement other than it's gonna be included.
And this does not.
And this allows us, once they sign it, they're gonna disperse the 5 million. We get to use it immediately. This gets us out of a hole that we've been in for trying to resolve for months. So that solves that problem. I would, I have some comments about the issues, but big picture, I'd go ahead for this and get this signed.
When I look at it, I think the only crossover issue is the 0.1% ownership. That's real.
And so the PSA, the earnest money goes to the apartment company. It does not transfer via the PSA, does not transfer that money into the condo company. So if there is no agreement with Steamboat Partners, i.e. the global agreement, it's not like that money suddenly flows somewhere or to them or something like that. It's just, we have it in an account that is ready to go.
Does our solving of the $5 million hole, does that then change Lone Tree's willingness or leverage around getting the global agreement in place? I totally get why they're separate, but I just would hate for that to make them change their tune around the sense of urgency.
Oh, I think that they want to go, they thought we were going to be doing it today, and we said, we're not ready to do that for a variety of reasons. I think them knowing there's this $5 million sitting there waiting to go, but it's contingent on getting the global agreement finalized and executed, is motivation for them, not the other way around.
No, but are there other things that are still outstanding that we haven't come to agreement on?
I would prefer not to discuss that.
And I guess that's what I have a question too, that you might say the same answer. But we've been working on this global agreement for months.
Yes,
What if we just don't wanna do it anymore? And wanna hold our partners to the original contract?
we have that ability.
We do have that ability, and in that case, we need this sale.
No,
So that's why I think we need to do the global agreement first. My opinion. I could be totally wrong, Mark, tell me.
Your opinion, I disagree with.
Okay, yeah, tell me why. So why,
I think, because I think it's crucial to get, this is separate, it's a document that, it's a contract to sell. It's an offer to purchase the property contingent on items. But it provides a $5 million deposit that is immediately usable. It solves the problem. I think that they don't want to mess around with the global agreement. The global agreement could go on for another month. Right.
but if we don't sign the global agreement, doesn't that solve our problem and transfer the responsibility?
There's some issues I'm not in love with the global agreement, but it solves some problems. And in some regards, you probably say don't do it, but there are some issues in there that resolves, but it's not, the global agreement is not critical to have done to get this done. This is critical.
I agree totally with that. This is, phase one, we need the money. That's what the PSA is all about.
TCOs and a couple, I mean, I'm just saying, maybe this is not something that I don't want to mess with the negotiations of, so please tell me, stop, this is exact. But why don't we, at this point, after all the months of trying to get this done, why don't we just hold our partners to the original contract?
Sorry,
Why do we not just hold our development partners to the original contract? And you know more about construction than I do, Mark, so I
I
understand
think
your opinion.
we're getting
Into
into
exact, okay, I'm sorry.
executive session
Okay, I'm sorry.
negotiations. We actually had a conversation about that. If you remember the sort of series of options that we talked about. So I think probably the most, there's sort of two choices that exist. One is, as George mentioned, and as I think Lou and Mark are suggesting, is provide the authorization so that this PSA can move forward and come back with the global agreement when that's ready. The other option is to take them together on the 12th.
I did not suggest that. I said that is an option that you have.
Pardon me.
Don't mess up George with me.
And again, though, we don't have a global agreement to, well, never mind.
Forgetting the global agreement, is there any reason why we shouldn't move as quickly as possible on this PSA?
I don't expect that if we told the buyer that we're not going to do it until next week, that they would suddenly disappear. But that is a possibility. At the same time, if we give them their contract, they can just get out if they want to anyways. Again, it does start the mechanics of getting money available that could be used to finish out the condo project. And I think the fundamental terms are not going to change. What would change between now and next Thursday is those couple items that I highlighted, which I don't believe are deal killers one way or the other. I believe we're going to come to something that makes sense, but if if you as a board are willing to approve the PSA subject to finalization as it's been presented, then I don't think there's anything next week that would change your mind the other way. Does that make sense?
I have a question. I apologize if I missed this at the start because I was 5 minutes late. So this PSA that we potentially could approve today, like, could you clarify, like, should we negotiate for stronger seller protections before moving forward?
We have negotiated over the last.
This
2
is as
weeks.
strong as they're gonna be,
We,
the
yeah,
seller protection. Okay, and then,
except as to those couple items that I outlined in my memo.
right, okay,
But no, we've had multiple red lines go back and forth with
Right.
respect to this.
thank you for
And
all
For
that.
example, we pushed for, I don't know if you were here or not, but the interest carry on the infrastructure loan is 25 grand a month. We wanted that paid by that. The compromise that they presented and apparently are willing to do is this basically every 90 days, so basically a third of that. Now, we could certainly come back with, hey, FYI, the board did not approve the PSA today. Our next meeting's on the 12th. That doesn't work for us. We need.
Right,
this.
and so I guess
We
those
could do
are,
that.
I guess those are my questions for the group here, is like, do we feel like there still needs to be stronger seller protections before moving forward with this? Are we prepared to absorb the risk if the buyer terminates the contract after we've spent the earnest money? And then 3, are we comfortable proceeding without a contractual affordability requirement on lot B? To me, like, those are the questions we need answered today, to decide if we're ready to move forward with this or not, or direct George to go back to them.
Thank you for saying that.
Thank you.
As specifically as the affordability thing, my understanding and impression from them is no provisions to that effect is acceptable to them.
Great, so it's, to clarify, that is like a non-negotiable for them. They want.
That's been their position.
So I mean, I think it needs to be a board conversation of like, are we prepared to absorb this risk? And should we negotiate for stronger seller protections? Or do we feel like we've negotiated as far as we can get with them? Like, to me, I think that's the conversation we need to be having right now. Before we can talk about anything else.
I would agree with you.
So I will open it up then to, you know, we have people online. Scott, I saw you come off, or you're not off mute, never mind, it's just unhighlighted. You know, like Blue, John, Cole, I would love to hear from you guys on, do we feel like we need stronger seller protections and we need to negotiate for that further? Are we prepared to absorb the risk if they back out and we've already spent the money? Like, what does that look like? Because we have not had those conversations as a broader board.
Well, you know, I think from them backing out, I'm not sure I see the relationship between what we're doing here and the global agreement. So that's a risk, regardless of whatever it is we do on the PSA. The seller protections, the affordability issue is the one I was most concerned about. And there's a lot of dialogue that has been, you know, this is what we do. Riverview is an example, and it's an affordable housing complex.
Right.
It is.
No, I agree with you. I have actually a couple of employees who are living in the Riverview units, and it's more expensive than they thought with some hidden fees. There's like the HOAs more. There are things that they're like, I was told I would be paying this, I'm actually paying this. And they're frustrated with that. And so I think Riverview is amazing. I think it's a really, really incredible. Like, it is life-changing for a lot of people living there, but it is more expensive, and they've been told that there are going to be some additional fees that they didn't have the first few months. So we're already seeing that unfold in a certain way.
And I don't question at all that that's probably gonna happen with phase 2 here.
No,
Now, there are
I,
restrictions in terms of, you know, don't we have an AMI that's with the city in terms of what we promised? You answer that question, somebody? Yeah.
Yeah,
Look at it.
so based on the entitlements, there was we projected that these were gonna be deed restricted units. The consideration that was given for that was the parking limitations, so I would say there's probably some teeth that the city has in the event that somebody were to come in and propose, something that that didn't meet their definition of a workforce unit. Based on the conversations that we've had with the buyer, it sounds like they would absolutely meet that criteria. So I don't think that there would necessarily be a scenario there, but there would be some type of enforcement mechanism from the city. Albeit it'd be kind of loose, because they could just come through a new entitlement process and change that.
How many workforce?
150.
150 units. So, I mean, to me, that we're going on goodwill. That's essentially what we're doing. And
The real thing is not like nitpicking how much can we trust them, is this a worthy deal to get us out of the hole, understanding the risk around the lack of control we'll have about it.
great, I think
Yeah.
that's great,
So
we're
that's-
not able to nitpick, like, yes.
There's also the component, as you pointed out, Commissioner, that there's certainly a possibility that in 6 months or 9 months or a year, they terminate the contract. We've been paying monthly interest payments to the tune of 25 grand. About a third of that would be covered by these earnest money or non-refundable. But they would terminate the contract. We would have a year from that to come up with $5 million to pay them back the earnest money. Now, we are hoping for some revenue in the coming months from the sale of condominium projects. It will not be $5 million to the house.
I'd like to make one comment, and that is, what happens if we don't move forward with this PSA? And, Mark has pointed it out. This solves a huge problem that we have been working on with our partners for over 6 months. And I don't know that there is an option if we don't move forward. We are not in a position, I mean, we have ready, willing, and able buyers standing by on phase 1. And if we don't get the $5 million, that is in huge jeopardy. So I mean, if someone has a better idea, I don't. So and I know the PSA has been negotiated. Could it be tweaked a little bit more? Yes, but not, I mean, I think we're 95% there. And I don't think the last 5% is enough for me to say, no, let's go in a different direction. So.
And I don't think anyone is suggesting we go in another direction. I'm certainly not. I appreciate that. But I am asking us to dig deep and say, like, is this the one we want to move forward for? Do we want to go back and direct our negotiators to say, like, we understand you are a ready and willing buyer. Why do you need 400 plus days then? Like, can we tighten up some of these things? Can we put some additional protections in for this authority? I think we need to make sure that we are taking care of ourselves, and this is one way to do that, absolutely. But I want to make sure that we have thought through as a whole group what that risk looks like, and is it the right decision?
But to me, like, it's not like about, to me, the real risk tolerance is, can we handle a foreclosure event
Yes.
and to pay our debts?
Yes.
Not, should we have them shorten their closing time?
Can we handle that, the potential downfalls,
As
right?
George just pointed out, that like, being on pins and needles is about the only risk that we run. 400 days until they close.
Right.
But we need to know the other the extreme, which is foreclosure and having to.
Yeah, we
Using-
need to understand that, let's say they back out on day 410, like where does that leave us, and are we,
Same choices.
right?
And just to say, and Helen, for that, I may be the minority voice here, but I wouldn't mind looking at the other option. And that is, you know, I don't wanna get the exec session and stuff, but if we don't sign the other agreement, we don't need this.
Hey, kids, look, it is not like we have months to negotiate this and to mess with this. So, number one, in response to your questions, I'm fine with the affordability issue. Because it's a trusted, proven developer. It is not a Lone Tree Trust. These guys know what they're doing. And it's a known benefactor, that a donor that is participating. I'm fine taking the risk on the 5 million, because the flip side is we don't take the risk, we don't get the project done. And you want to see some real problem is that we got TCOs and we can't close because we're short $5 million. So we need the $5 million. And if there's a risk in 6 months or 12 months or a year and a half, I'll take that risk to get done today.
I hear
I
you.
forgot what the other question
No, I hear
was.
you, I appreciate you answering that so bluntly. I'm asking every single board member to answer those questions though. Right, like I think we have heard from a lot of strong voices, including myself in this meeting, and I think this needs to be a decision where everybody gets to say if they are comfortable with that risk and what that looks like. Because we need to be making this decision as a board. And if you are opposed, and that is okay. But I want to hear from everyone who we haven't heard from to answer those same questions.
Well, I have a question.
Yep.
Is it how many days, 4 months, 4 days?
It's 480 if it went to the end, and I doubt they're gonna go to the end.
They're
It
not
doesn't
gonna-
really impact
You could
it.
have no, and then do it. 5 years is we get closer to 480, we wait. The chances of this falling apart is getting worse because it's tenuous. Is that correct?
I would say probably the opposite. If they've been going through all their due diligence and spending time and money on this, they would not, their likelihood of terminating would go down over time, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
So waiting is not negative except for the 5 million.
Well, it leaves the $5 million, potential repayment out in the open for a longer period of time. It also increases the time that we are carrying the loan that exists and are paying monthly.
Okay.
So that is the downside to the housing authority in terms of time.
Yeah, when you look at it, when I look at something like this, it's what are the upsides? How big are the upsides? What are the downsides? How big are the downsides? In this case, the downside is substantially bigger. Or the upside is substantially bigger, because the downside is terrible. If we don't sell the property, we may not be able to finish the job. And I think it's as simple as that. We need money in what, 20 days, Mark? More than 1 month.
Dan has his hand up.
Yes, thank you. So, for my part, it seems to me like, of course, there's going to be risk with any sort of deal like this, especially with an extended closing. And as much as I would love for the closing period to be shorter, I would defer to other people who have more expertise in that kind of area. But it seems to me that the risks of not doing it, kind of to Lou's point, the risks of not doing it are greater than the risks of doing it. And I would say that, for my part, based off of what I've heard and my understanding of the situation, I would be in favor of it.
I wanted to mention that we are not operating here from a position of strength. We're operating from an extreme position of weakness. And we have someone here who has everything you said, Mark, credibility to me is the most important thing. And that group has shown that, as well as Gorman and Kimball has shown that. And they're giving us a way out. We got a losing hand here, and somebody's willing to offer us a way out of this. And to your point, Lou, having this project not completed is unacceptable.
I agree.
Just totally unacceptable. You want to talk about a black eye. I mean, that would be like a dagger to my heart. So to me, we need to move forward on this. This is our best option. We've been talking about it for a while. I appreciate dig deep. Let's make sure everybody's opinion is heard. But we need to move forward while we can, because somebody is giving us a lifeline here.
Well put.
Can I hear from this side of the table?
I agree with Mark where the reward far outweighs the risk in my eyes. In the sense that if we don't take this lifeline, like Steve said, it could really bite us in the butt long term.
Yeah, I'm on the same page as well. I agree with Steve that, and what Luke said as well, is the upsides outweigh the downsides. I am concerned about the affordability aspect. I know that a lot of people aren't, but I don't know, without like AMI restrictions, I know they're credible, but at the same time, like Angelco is highlighting about Riverview, that there are hidden costs. But I also think that the risks kind of outweigh the cost in that aspect. That's where I stand.
Scott?
Yeah, I mean, I agree as well. I think it's a huge benefit. We need to do it. There are 2 points of the purchase and sale agreement. George, one question I had last meeting, I had asked about not an affordability covenant, but a residential covenant, just because the housing authority's mission is to provide housing. I was wondering how the purchaser reacted to that.
So let me pull it up. There is a reference in the due diligence portion of the contract regarding them during their due diligence period, conducting due diligence with respect to the suitability of the property for housing. That is as far as they were willing to go. I don't think contractually that would allow us, if we somehow discovered that they were, during the contract period, were pursuing some alternative plan that, for example, incorporated mixed use. I don't think there's enough teeth there to allow us to terminate based upon that. So there is a acknowledgement that this is supposed to be for housing. That's as far as they were willing to go. And I believe it is as far as they are willing to go.
Okay. And then I just have one other question. In the PSA, there's a financing period. We've been talking about the timelines. The financing period is basically the back end 90 days. And that type of clause is just an out. You know, I mean, a developer can pull out for any reason for a financing.
They can pull out for any and no reason pursuant to the contract.
Yeah. That, again, I'm on the same page as everyone. I think the reward, I think it's worth it to move forward. But I just was wondering if you could push back against that financing, because to me, that's just a very open-ended kind of gift at the end of a really long due diligence period.
Are you speaking in terms of the amount of time or in terms of
the amount of time
to the amount of time you said?
Yeah, I was just speaking about the amount of time. I mean, they already have their review period and they have extensions to the review period, right? And then they kind of have this tail end 3-month financing.
Yeah, I mean, they are separated in the document, but essentially it's just a 240-day review period. It's in the due diligence versus the financing. From a practical perspective, I don't see a big difference between those. So I would not get too caught up upon, the separation of those two. But again, yes, if we want to push for a quicker deadlines, then we can certainly do so and go back to the negotiating table. I will say we do have the interest carry, so there's that issue. But the repayment of the earnest money being based upon a 1-year date from the termination, in some ways, the longer they go, it gives us more time and opportunity, if they were to terminate, to figure out how the heck we're going to come up with the money to pay that back.
Cole, you've been quiet.
Yeah, no, it's good input. I think, we're all on the same page as to the urgency of the cash flow issue. I personally wouldn't qualify this as an extreme position of weakness, but it is a position of weakness in that we do have a cash shortfall. We do also have an asset, and we are utilizing that asset to solve a problem. That was the intent since last summer, when we identified the shortfall. We did all of this and we made concessions, both us and our partners. And I do not want this lost on anybody, while not raising the prices to the condo buyers. In fact, those prices were lowered through the STR fund. That is separate from the cash flow issue we have. So we are doing this and scrambling to a certain extent, all because we are maintaining our objective of delivering affordable units to the workforce of the Yampa Valley. It is creative, it is frustrating, it is lengthy because this has never been done before. It's a little bit of the sausage being made kind of thing going on, but we are, the cash flow need is pushing us into this position where we need to fully leverage the asset we have to make that gap. In any other scenario, we would use the fungibility of the whole project to try and make ends meet, which was the whole intent from the beginning. But we are to a place where we do need to sell this asset to leverage the asset to finish the project, of which we have maintained prices and even lowered them. So this is kind of our own doing in certain respect. And in a normal development, we just jack the prices up, get some more cash flow, and call it good. We have been true to our mission, and the deed restriction has been put in place and adhered to in order to facilitate that. Yes, the shortfall is such that we do need to sell the asset and give up our position in that covenant in order to make that deal go. That is a cost of this particular transaction. Is it optimal? No. But at the end of the day, it is delivering what we need to on phase one, while still giving us the best possible opportunity on phase two. It might not just be us, obviously it's not us, we are turning it over to a new owner, of which we're not going to be a partner of as the current details lie. But one that we know and we have partnered with before and has a long track record, everything's been said. So I just kind of wanted to frame it like that we are still staying true to our mission. We are delivering the units at a price point that we didn't think was possible thanks to the SDR funds, but we also didn't raise the prices to lower them. We kept them flat the whole time, and in doing so had to come up with creative measures and had to leverage an asset to the fullest extent that we possibly could in order to deliver that. And for me, it's these last three items on here are relatively immaterial. I'm fine with the negotiating team working those fine details out, but I'm prepared to move on this PSA.
I'll add two things for the sake of discussion. Kind of like what Cole was saying, if this was not the housing authority and we were just doing a development and there was a $5 million shortfall, and we were already pricing them at prices that we thought would sell quickly, You just increase the price of the 85 units by about 55 grand a piece. We have not done that. We've not considered doing that. Steamboat Partners has not requested or even discussed that. So just food for thought. And two, we will be getting under contract with the first round of buyers of the condominium units on Wednesday. Those units will close between 30 and 45 days from Wednesday. There's more money due to Hausman for that date. Question.
No, Riverside, was roughly, I heard $2,000 plus HOAs fees that they haven't talked about. What is the possibility of that being the same at phase two? Is that pretty much the ballpark?
I can't answer that
You may have any idea?
question.
We don't know.
It's whatever they want.
So that would be supposedly affordable, and it's probably not gonna be. Got it.
What's supposedly affordable?
Well, the $2,000 unit per month for Riverside.
I know several people who are in Riverside and couldn't be happier, so I disagree with you on that. I know several people in Riverside, totally happy with the
Riverview?
Riverview. Totally happy.
Riverside.
Riverview.
Riverside is the mobile home park that used to be there.
Yeah.
25.
So when you say they're not affordable, I disagree. I think they're very affordable.
People live there.
And so am I.
Okay, anyway, it's at 2,000, I'm not arguing about that, but it's about 2,000 plus other fees and HOAs. The question, I was just curious, we have no idea, but if phase two went, and I was wondering if that would be the ballpark, on unit cost.
They have no obligations. The buyer has no obligation pursuant to the contract with respect to pricing of whatever they build there whatsoever.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify.
So
I think our understanding in their dealings with the donor that party has certain expectations that they place on the actual buyer. We are not privy to those. We don't know what they are, and we have no control over that.
So I'm checking to be sure.
All right,
I was just
any
gonna
other?
say on the best, just for the purposes of can we live with the lack of control we have around affordability? The best case, we can hope that they do a Riverview 2.0 and that the rents are somewhere within what everyone deems as affordable. But on the worst case, everyone needs to be okay with the trade-off we're making, that this is a fully market rate product, that they deliver a fully market rate product, but it saves the phase one deal. Those are the two ends of the spectrum.
That's correct.
Before I'd like to pause the discussion and take public comment. And is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none? Is there anybody whose hand up online?
I don't see anybody.
Okay, we'll close public comment. And I'd like to just note that we had scheduled, a half an hour for this, and we're now an hour and 9 minutes.
Yeah.
So I appreciate everyone's input. And I would like to kind of move this, and get some direction. And I'm gonna make a motion that we move, just to get something on the table, to move to accept the agreement, subject to the negotiators dealing with the warranties, the infrastructure indemnification, and the confidentiality provisions.
And any other provisions
And
I
anything
deem necessary.
that, and George, whatever you want.
Second.
All right,
For clarification, can you identify that negotiation team?
yeah. It would be, Jason, Mark, and Cole.
Oh.
This is a surprise.
Don't put your hand.
Elliot,
Muskrat now.
as staff, but I mean, as far as board members, yes, so it would be Jason, Elliot, Cole, and Mark, and George.
Yeah.
Hey, Kathy,
Yes,
I just want to make a quick note, since we made a motion, is there a second on that? That's a yes.
yes, Mark had a second.
just want to make a comment on that. I really appreciate what Cole said, because this is correct. We have met, our goal has always been making sure that we deliver a high quality, affordable unit, and that is the ultimate goal. I want to state, I very much appreciate the donor and Gorman stepping up and working with us to ensure that we fulfill that mission. I will say that I am going to vote no today, not because I'm disagreeing with the contract, but because I really do feel that it is tangential to the global agreement, should be discussed together. So just wanted to state that. I don't mind being a minority vote.
All right,
Motion,
any other discussion on the motion?
and one more point of clarification. Earnest money goes to Yampa Valley Apartments, or Mid Valley Apartments, which is 99.99% owned by the housing authority.
Correct.
Then which, the final injection of cash to phase one would then be put into the condo association, or the condo company.
Pursuant to a global agreement.
Yeah, exactly. The hurdle there is the global agreement that then moves the money from the apartments to
The apartment company cannot just willy-nilly decide to transfer $5 million to the condo company without further authorization. So I believe that answers your question.
Yes, I just wanted to
And to clarify the motion, it's authorizing Mid Valley Apartments LLC to enter into this contract.
That is correct.
Thank you.
All right, further discussion on the motion? If not, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
I,
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 12-1. All right, thank you. Our next item, as George mentioned earlier in the conversation, was the discussion of the global agreement. It is not ready for discussion, and so that will be tabled to a future meeting. We hope to have everything in place by a week from Thursday, which is our retreat. And what we're planning on doing is having a short business meeting before the retreat. And we will notify everybody as to the agenda at that time, or as soon as possible. Okay. Then the next item, great. This is,
Long one.
yeah, hold on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Ready?
Yeah.
All right.
Hi, Bob.
The next item is an executive session to be held in compliance with CRS 246402 4I1 personnel matters, CRS 246402 4E, determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations and instructing negotiators, and CRS 246402 4B, conference with an attorney for the local body for the purpose of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions. The subject matter is the employment of the executive director.
I'm Kathy, we have a.
Hold on.
People
Well,
on.
I was going to, before we take a vote, ask that we, make sure that only the board members are on the line.
I'm not going.
Thank you.
Okay, those in executive session, we'll start with Catherine.
Catherine Carson.
George Eck.
Like Land Lamont.
Angelica Salinas.
Shannon Doyle Landers.
Maddie Ward.
Cole Hewitt.
Mark Halverson. John Spezia. Lou Tortora.
Kathy Meyer,
And Steve.
Steve Muntean,
Then online.
Dan,
Daniel Burry.
Guy Yates.
okay, if there's anyone who thinks that any discussion in executive session was not on topic, please state your objections now. All right, thank you very much. We'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Well,
Motion to
wait, we need to say that during executive session.
Okay.
No decisions were made, direction was given to the attorney and myself regarding the employment of Jason.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we can adjourn.
Stop recording.
Now we can adjourn.
Thank you all.